Okay, so I'm going to go over the hotel reservation FRQ, and first we're going to answer these questions. And like I said, you should be able to write down these answers before you start writing any code. We need a one-sentence summary of basically what the program is about, what it's supposed to do, what classes will we be using, or what makes up the program, and in which class will my code reside, and directly related to that is what instance variables will I be using. So here's the first class, the reservation class, and actually let me back up. We're talking about hotel reservations once again, and so this is a reservation object, and then we'll have a hotel class that basically stores and manages the reservations. So first of all, each reservation, all we know about it is apparently it stores a room number and a guest name. Now, what are the instance variables it stores them in? We don't know, because we don't care. It doesn't matter. And of course, it has a constructor that takes a guest name and a room number. So that's what we're going to be working with. Now, if I scroll down, here's the hotel class, and just focusing on the variables right now, it has two instance variables. One's an array of reservations called rooms, and the other is an array list of strings, which is a wait list. And those are the names of people waiting to get a room, basically, or reserve a room. And so, if I read the directions here, an incomplete declaration of the hotel class is shown below. Each hotel in the hotel reservation system has rooms numbered 0 on up, and if you had 100 rooms, then they'd be numbered 0 through 99. And so, which makes sense. We're just going to use an array to store the rooms, and the room numbers match that. One little detail: they created the rooms, the array, to be of size 10 initially. Don't worry about that. That's insignificant. It doesn't matter. The array will be the right size. You don't need to worry about that detail, like how many rooms there are. It's irrelevant when you're writing your code. Now, let me go back and let's talk about the answers to those questions. So, what does this program do? Well, it maintains a list of hotel reservations and a wait list for when there are no vacancies. And so, if a vacancy opens up, then you take the name off the wait list and reserve a room for that person. What classes were there? Well, reservation and hotel. Where will we be writing our code? In the hotel class. And these are the instance variables, rooms and wait list. And you really should note the types they are. And so once again, rooms is an array of reservation objects, whereas wait list is an array list of string objects. And so I would write that down when you're taking your notes. All right. Let's talk about how to do these two problems. Then there's two parts. The first one is called the request room method, and basically it's given a guest name and their request room, and you give them a room, or if there are no empty rooms, you add them to the wait list. So we're going to loop through our array and try to find our empty room. What does once again, the array is an array of reservation objects. And so every room either stores a reference to a reservation object, or it stores null. So you're looking through every room, and until you find an empty room. And once again, that room is empty if it's null. So you just check to see if that spot in the array is null. If it is empty, well, then you need to make a reservation for this guest. And every reservation object, let me go back to that. Every reservation stores a room number and a guest name, and of course it has that constructor that takes the guest name first and then the room number. And so when I say make a new reservation, it'll be the guest name using that parameter, that variable name, and the current room number. So you are looping through whatever the index is right now. That's part of the reservation. That's the room number. And then once you found the reservation, you're done. The return type was reservation. You're supposed to return a reference to that reservation, and basically, that would, you can use that to tell the person what room they got. And so, that's once again, you're looping through. If you found an empty room, you make a reservation for that person, and then return a reference to that reservation. If you got through the whole thing without finding any empty rooms, well, then you add the person's name to the wait list. And so don't forget, the wait list, those are not reservations, because you couldn't reserve a room because there were no rooms open. So in other words, you're just adding the name you're given to that list. And then you return null. Why are you returning null? Well, because once again, you're supposed to return a reservation, but if you couldn't make one, then you return null. One more little detail. I said if there are no empty rooms. It's not like this is an if statement. But this code that you're going to put after the loop only runs if there were no empty rooms, because once again, the loop would have ended as soon as you found an empty room and made a reservation. One more detail, as entered here, you have to use a normal for loop. Why? Because you need to know where you're at, what room number you're at when you make the reservation. So you can't do it for each loop in this case. So that's the request room method. Then part B, you're making the cancel and reassign method. So as it says, it releases a previous reservation, and then if basically if there's people waiting for a room, you take the first person on the list, the waiting list, and put that person in the room, or reserve the room for that person. And so first you have to find the room. So look, here's the method, and once again, look at what you're working with. The parameter is called res. It's a reservation, and then you actually return a reservation, right? Which is different from the method signature in the last one. So we're going to loop through all the rooms again, and then you're trying to find a room with the same name as a reservation with the same name as the given reservation. And so when you get to a room, you first check to see if it's empty, and what you want to then compare is if there is a reservation for that room, then that means there's a reservation object stored in the array, and you want to compare the name on that reservation with the name on this reservation. And as the names match, then you're going to cancel it. Now, basically, how do we cancel it? Well, definitely that person that was there in that room, that's not going to be the name afterwards. That won't be the reservation afterwards. Either you're going to replace the reservation that was there with a new reservation, or it'll just be an empty room if there's no one on the wait list. And so so first you checked if the wait list is empty, and there's a couple ways you can do that, but if the wait list isn't empty, that means there's some people waiting. And so you get the first name off the list, which would be the name at spot 0, and make sure you don't just get it, but you remove it from the wait list. And so and you can do that one step. I mean, you can do it in a couple of steps. You couldn't do it in one step. Anyway, once you get that name, once again, you're not adding a name to the array. You make a reservation, and that reservation would be with that name and the current room that we just we're replacing the reservation in the current room, so that's the room number used for when you make the reservation object. And then you store that reservation in this room. Now, and so if that all worked, you found the reservation, you replaced it with a new one from the list, then you return that reservation. Now, if you found it, and that's what I want you to appreciate, if you found the reservation with that name, with the given name, but there's no one waiting for the room, well, then you just make that room empty. And so that's what I say here, make the next room empty, or that room empty. I said it this way kind of as an if-else, and you could do it as an if-else, but technically, because right here we would have ended the method, we would have returned the reservation, you could just not say else and just put this statement here, just set it to null. Now, one other detail, like if you get through the whole thing and either you didn't find a reservation by that name, which shouldn't happen but could, or you removed that but there wasn't a new reservation. I guess what I'm getting at is at the end you're going to return null if there wasn't a new reservation made, because there was no one on the waiting list. Now, why couldn't we put that right here and just return null right here? Because once again, you would have an if-else, which is good actually. When you're trying to do returns, if-else is good because it'll do one or the other. but that whole thing is inside this loop, or this loop, or actually inside this if, which is inside loop. Anyway, it wouldn't compile. And so you don't return null until after the loop. All right, that is it. Take a stab at it. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions.